Welcome, Hallie. Today, we're going to start and get straight into it by talking about the importance of dream teams. And we're going to start by having a definition of a dream team. And possibly the easiest way for me to start talking about dream teams and the definitions thereof would be in sort of sports metaphors. I love sport, and I've always played sport. And I think what I find so inspiring about sport is that there's so many lessons we can learn in sport that we can apply to business. And in this part of the world, certainly my favorite sport is tennis, and then cricket. So we talk about dream teams. In tennis, there's this thing called the Laver Cup, and the European team, for example, would be comprised of players like Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, and Sinner would be part of that now. So that in tennis terms would be a dream team that would play against the US. In women's tennis, the Czech Republic Federation Cup team would be a dream team made up of all the players that play for the Czech team. In cricket, probably the most dominant cricket team at the moment, their dream team is the Indian cricket team, where they've just won the T20 World Cup in the West Indies and America. So that's a dream team, and it's made up of, for those that don't know or not familiar about this, it's made up of specialists in that team that are coached by a coach and a whole support team around the team. So, for example, in cricket, you've got probably 5 or 6 specialist batsmen, and some of those batsmen are even niched down even further by being opening batsmen or attacking batsmen or middle order batsmen. And then the bowling team is made up of fast bowlers or spin bowlers, and they too niche down. And some of those bowlers are used at the beginning of an innings, and some are used to close an innings. So everyone has a job in this dream team. Then you have a head coach, and you've got a bowling coach and a cricket coach, and you have physios, and you have sports psychologists, and team managers and team owners, and then you've got the sponsors. So all of these components make up a dream team. And the benefit of this to an organization is that you compile or you select the best people for your organization to succeed at the very pinnacle of that particular industry or avenue that you are competing in. Now, one of the key things around the benefits of having a dream team in your organization, one of the key things, one of the most important aspects of compiling or composing or bringing or conducting this organization and your dream team is actually the leader. And when you've chosen a CEO or a team manager or a coach, or in particular on the field, the operational side of it would be the captain of the team. And the role of the captain is absolutely crucial to keeping the team on track and providing the support, the morale, and the direction for the team when it's on the field. We think of, big organizations like Apple with Tim Cook. We look at Microsoft. We look at Amazon. We look at major finance companies like Goldman Sachs, like Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett. These leaders of those particular teams these leaders of these particular teams play a crucial role in defining the direction, the speed, the morale, and the values that that team or that organization needs to abide by in order to be at the very top of their game. We think of automotive companies that are dream teams, or that have dream teams to deliver incredible products in the automotive industries. And there we look at Tesla with Elon Musk. We look at Toyota, which for the last 30 or 40 years now has been one of the top global automotive manufacturers, and is leading with, for example, nowadays hybrid technology, and it is consistently a leader in dream teams. And then we look at the Volkswagen Group, which is under Herbert Diess, and this is once again an organization that has a whole lot of different brands underneath it. You know, we think of Volkswagen, we think of even Range Rovers that are now part of that dream team. You know, so the importance of dream teams in sport and in business are never to be understated, because the benefits to the organization are absolutely huge. And of course, once again, I just stress the absolute importance of having an incredibly well-chosen leader of that particular dream team, that's going to define the organization. And in many instances, like Apple, for example, with Tim Cook, his name is synonymous with the product. And they go to great lengths after Steve Jobs, for example, to choose the right people that are going to lead those teams in future. Now, if we step down a bit, perhaps, and we look at your role in making your dream team one that performs exactly the way you want it to perform, and is actually going to elevate you and the organization to one that is highly considered and well considered, that's the challenge that we're always facing. And it's about identifying the crucial strength in your organization by fostering collaboration in your organization, and by guiding your team to reach its full potential. So what we're going to do now is we're going to delve into this a little bit deeper. And in one of the emails that you might have received recently, reminding you about this particular event, you will have read there that only 12% of people in organizations believe that their organization is using their skills to their full potential. Now, I find that absolutely staggering, that 88% of the rest of the organization are, and we probably can break that down a few more. These are people that are, only 12% believe that the organization is using them to their full capacity. And perhaps the next 12% maybe not quite as convinced that they're being used to their full capacity. And we'll break that down. But let's say, for argument's sake, 50% of the organization doesn't believe that the organization is using their skills to their full potential. And this is where the challenge then comes in. The slide after this, I'm going to show you the opportunity that does exist around this for measuring or assessing people's unique strengths in the organization. And there's a line there's a sort of philosophical line around this, and that is, and it's to do with positive education and positive psychology, where what organizations should focus on a great deal more is actually on the strengths of people in the organizations rather than their weaknesses and train for weaknesses. Rather train for strengths. And I will share with you after this, I will share with you a PDF where it is actually a strengths finder assessment tool. And I can highly recommend that you read this document and you go through this document and you actually discover what your strengths are that you can contribute to the organization. And when you do that strengths assessment, you can share that with your team, and that too will be a revelation to yourself and to your team members. So these are some of the ways that you're going to understand the individual strengths in your organization. And that is, you can use this particular tool that I can highly recommend. Secondly, you can assess people in their actual roles by talking to them. I mean, it's really just as simple as that, as communicating with people and sitting next to them and asking them what they think their strengths are. And I'll give you a personal example here. In one of my roles, I had to do a 6-weekly or monthly board report. And I always found that whilst I had all the information, I really struggled with this particular aspect of getting this right and having the messaging right for the different people that I reported to in the board. And I actually discussed this once with my board chair, which is probably, sort of a personal admission, saying, look, can I send my board report to you for your approval before we actually submit this to the rest of the board? And he agreed to do this. And in that way, it was reassuring to me that I knew that the board report actually met the satisfaction of the board chair, and he understood fully what was actually in the board report. And I found that extremely reassuring for myself. It was reassuring for him to know that my board report was coming through. He'd already seen it, and he'd asked me any questions that weren't clear with him before other board members actually got the opportunity to quiz us both, I suppose, on the board report. The other way of identifying unique strengths is during your meetings with your team, whether they're individual meetings or actually in the team. And I suppose they're different circumstances here. If you basically walk into a role where you're a leader and you've got an existing team, you've got to do a lot of digging to find out and communicate with your team members and determine, what their strengths are. And as I say, you can do that by simply asking them. And then also doing sort of questioning, open questionings, if there's a project or a job that actually comes up, ask people, who's the best person for this job? And there's absolutely no harm in asking that question and getting people's or team members, peers, to ask one another who the best person is for that particular role. So I can highly recommend that, and using this simple assessment tool, personal reflections, your own reflections on seeing the quality of the work that people produce in your teams, and thirdly, peer feedback. Then, of course, there's recognizing people's diverse talents. Some folks in your team have talents that may well surprise you. For example, in one of my teams previously, I had a guy who was a fantastic compare, as it were. He'd worked on television before, and he really enjoyed interviewing people. And whenever we had a function or so, and we had a guest, he would do all the interviews. I wouldn't do that. Because he was really good at it, and he knew exactly what to do. He was very comfortable in charge of, in front of a large crowd of people. And the other thing that was really important, and that brings me to my next point, and that was the cultural thing. He was a New Zealander. I was a South African. I wasn't that familiar with the culture in that town. I wasn't familiar with all the names, the people, the history, the sport, the business. And he was able to take command of the room because culturally he was from that region. And I think there may well be examples for that in your organization when you need to get the right person for the job to do that comparing, for example. And then skill diversity. Sometimes it's quite clear that while someone's doing a particular job, they have other skills that they are well versed at and well trained for. I mean, you might have someone in marketing, but they do actually have a background in bookkeeping or accounting, and it may be a good choice to get them to help do the numbers and delve into the numbers when it comes to your marketing and sales, and helping or getting them to help you to make decisions around your sales team and the conversions from marketing and so on. So use those different skills. And then perhaps to take it just one step further, and that is this is probably if you've got a much bigger team, and this is where you're getting to teams probably more than 15 or 20, where it would be a really great idea to get a précis of someone's CV and their skills or and strengths, and actually having that on a cheat sheet for yourself when you're starting. I remember what we used to do when I was working with a university where we had, a number of different faculties, and actually having profiles of all the leaders of those different faculties, and actually having their picture, their profile, so that you could, at a glance, in your office, have sort of an operational board of the people that are in your organization, having their images up. And then in this particular instance, what we would do too is we would actually have the prospects that we were looking at in this organization, outside of the organization, we'd have a lot of their profiles up too on the boards under those faculty leaders. And we'd use, we would match the faculty leader or the dean to their prospects when it came to raising capital for their research projects. So, you had the dean, and then you had all his prospects underneath that, and you'd build a visual team of the prospects underneath that. And I suppose the big thing there too is to make sure that you continuously update the folks that are on that board for you. So it's always helpful to do that. Okay, so I think we get it there about understanding individual strengths. Is there anything you'd like to add there, Manoj, that you may wish to contribute?
Hi, Rick. I'm just mesmerized just listening to you and, trying to absorb all your words of wisdom.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Lee, why don't you come in?
I can just add here that our team, our staff, our people are our pillars of our business.
That's right.
Depends on us how we make use of them.
That's
And
good.
that is possible only when we can diagnose them, how about their strengths and weaknesses. So your talks are very, very useful, Drake. I'm trying to learn more and more about it.
Thank you, Manoj. You're always very kind. Okay, I've got Ozzy Kang and I've got Prachi Kaul. And Samuel, I don't know if you're actually part of the conversation or whether you're simply recording the the session. But Ozzy, I don't know if you'd like to participate, but you're very welcome to making a contribution around understanding individual strengths. Now, just to explain, Ozzy and Prachi, this is really a podcast. It's not really a masterclass as such, and I want people to contribute and feel very welcome to expressing their views around what I've said so far. So please join me. Ozzy, what would come on board and let us hear from you.
Sure. Sorry for going offline. I've got my daughter here also, so I've got some stuff happening in the background, so that's why I was offline.
No worries. Yeah.
Just for me, I just wanted to learn a little bit more about leadership. For me, I'm a student of leadership, and I always like to extend my network. And Rick, as you know, I reached out to you a little while ago, and you and I chatted through LinkedIn. But for me, this is one of my first online sessions. So for me, I'm more like Manoj. I'm here to listen, and if there's something that piques my interest, I will definitely chime in.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. If you would like to say something, please just you can put your hand up and I'll see, and you're welcome to come in. Yeah. So
yeah. Hi, Rick.
Prachi,
And I'll just pitch in. So no, didn't want to make you feel like that, yes, you're delivering a masterclass to only audience where you don't know whether there's someone sitting behind the screen or there are skeletons. So not really. Very active audience, and I see everybody pretty engaged in your conversation here. What you're speaking is very relevant. So I come from a background of human resources, and in the sphere of work that I operate in, this is all very, very relevant. We kinds of live it and abide it by things like diversity. I think it is a prime importance. But having as easy as said, it's very difficult to bring in that level of consciousness in people because I think culturally and upbringing wise, people are a certain way. So while we are across the globe, we talk about diversity, inclusion. We know what is the right thing to do, but when it comes to executing, or when it comes to in midst of a lot of things, in midst of a lot of planning and action that you want to do it, you come back to your natural self, which is not probably being sensitive about a couple of things that you're hearing otherwise. So that is one thing that if that during our conversations, we could talk about more of how to make it more of a practice on a regular basis, and not just conversations, not a room discussion. If that is something that is part of your program today, would love to discuss it more.
Yes. Look, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think as a new leader, perhaps, you may be a little bit risk averse to bringing someone in who's perhaps, slightly culturally different to you, and you're not quite sure, or you haven't got 100% confidence in how they're going to handle this particular situation. But I've always found that, the more time you spend with individuals and the more you sort of tee them up, to be prepared to participate. I've used this example before. I used to have one-on-one discussions with all my team every fortnight, one-on-ones. And there were about 10 people. And then, of course, I would have meetings with my bosses or my leaders. And it was sort of it was informal in the sense that they could talk about anything, and you could ask questions about anything. So it was, how are you, checking in about the individual, and then, how things at home. You don't have to discuss it, but, everything going well? Yes, fine. Kids are happy at school. They settled in, and I'm going well. And, you really just relating on a human level with your team. And then it migrates to work. And in one particular instance, I'll quickly tell the story, and that was about an individual who came up with, she was a young lady, quite newish to the team, perhaps a little bit, less experienced than the rest of the team. But she came up with this brilliant solution to a particular problem that we were facing. And she asked me to bring it up at the next meeting. And I said, look, I don't want to bring it up. I want you to bring it up, and I teed her up. I gave her the confidence to know that I already approved of this wonderful idea that she'd suggested. And she came up and delivered this solution. And the brilliant thing about this particular instance was that confidence that I had in her, and the way she delivered to the rest of the team, there must have been about 10 of us, was so confident, was so eloquent, and it was so decisive, and we agreed right then and then, after a short discussion, that this is how we were going to go ahead. It transformed this particular person in a way that was quite, it was a metamorphosis for her. She just changed, she blossomed, and she was so good. And I was so delighted that she could, in future, participate with a sense of authority that was, it was refreshing to see that someone could really go ahead and progress.
So, Rick, maybe just from your example, if I could close on to my point, and Ozzy, just 1 second, I'll take.
Yes.
It's pretty much how you passed on that confidence, how you showed your faith and belief in her, which kinds of gave her the support to come forward in that way. And be it a situation where probably the targets were tight, where the audience was maybe your investors, or you were in a spot where you had to be very, very cautious of what needs to be done. Maybe as an individual at that point in time, you would have, like you rightly used, risk averse. So, you probably would have been a little more cautious. So it would not have passed on from you to the next. So, and that is exactly the kind of situation I'm talking, that at the time of crisis, at the time of tough situations, when it is something, your own neck is under the sword. Yeah. So, in those situations, you tend to become your natural self, and you may not be able to empower the other person as much.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of places where I feel that inclusive diversity, that kinds of does take a feedback. So, so that's from that.
This is Hallie. Can I kind of pitch in on that one too? Because I know where you're coming from. Is it Prati? Can you, and it's just because I have a Berkman profile where my stress level is at this very corner of the red, and an HR person called me a chameleon when I become stressed. You don't know which direction in my stress I'm going to go. Am I going to go towards my analytical side and be all involved in the analytics and just focused on the work, or am I going to need the people in my stress time? And what people had a hard time with at Caterpillar with me is because my usual nature is a happy-go-lucky person. But when I became stressed or something was bothering me or impacting me that greatly, my stress level, it changed. And they called, some of my good friends either called it getting hallied, because you either, maybe I was training you and we had trained, you had done something, I'd gone over it multiple times, but it raised my stress level to a point where we hadn't gotten to that point where you needed to be. Or I was talking to management, and I know I was on a project for 4.5 years trying to get Oracle leasing into Caterpillar, and they weren't always listening. And they learned some lessons when we went live, but that's okay. I had to learn to, as my manager would say, Hallie, take one battle at a time. That's all I could do. But I would raise those stress levels. So just to kind of bounce off of that, sometimes, yes, those things came through, and it wasn't always appreciated.
Thank you, Hallie. I appreciate that. Ozzy's been waiting, Manoj. So let's first go to Ozzy, and then I'll come back to you, Manoj.
Thanks, Rick. I just wanted to follow up on your topic of the one-on-ones. One of the things that I've noticed with a lot of managers is they use the one-on-ones for business purposes and not really to understand and build that relationship with the employee or their colleague. The reason I bring this up is because a lot of the times people are busy, right? They've got lots of things going. And the first question the leader asks, is there anything that you want to update me on? Yeah. And if there's nothing, you say no, and they go, okay, let's cancel the meeting. And what I find is that is a lost opportunity to actually connect with that person, to get to know that person, as Rick mentioned, right? So as leaders, I always tell people, never cancel a one-on-one, reschedule it if you have to, because what that shows is that one-on-one is not really used to grow that relationship and to build and to learn from one another. It's used as an update. And those are two very different objectives. And as a leader, you need to lead by example. Set that time so that you can build those relationships. I thought that was an important point. I wanted to follow up with that because I just see that so often with young leaders and even older leaders. They put time as the priority versus actually getting to know the person and understanding their strengths. You mentioned, the quirks that they might have. Those are opportunities where you can actually get to know that person as a human being. That's and help that person grow.
Exactly. Thank you, Ozzy. Manoj, I'll come to you now. I just want to add one more thing there. And that is, it's getting to know the person individually, but it's also getting to understand what some of their challenges may be off the field, if I can put it that way, or away from work. It may be the wife has lost her job, or the kids changing schools and they've got to travel further to go and drop their kids off. They've got to get up earlier, and there's just little things that in one instance, one of my team members could never do something on a Friday night because they had a big family. It was their responsibility to get all their family together, and that was a cultural thing that I had to be aware of. And so they always were not able to do something on a Friday night, and I was always cognizant of those quirky things. And then there's training opportunities. Is to suggest to someone, would you be interested in doing a particular course, that's coming up? It's come across my desk that, hey, you know what, another department is offering this free course, or, I've still got some money in my budget. Would you like to do this particular course? I know you're interested in, AI design or something, and you could send someone on a course. It's a good way of rewarding someone by showing your interest in their skills and their career development, So, yes. So thanks for that, Ozzy, and thanks for your contribution. I'm going to flick on to the next slide, and then Manoj, why don't you quickly just come in? We have been chatting so much, guys, and you know what? I've still got 1, 2, 3, 4 more slides to fly through. So I want to restrict you when you do come in for a chat. You've only got 1 minute. Okay, so make your
Okay.
point as quickly as possible, please.
Yes,
So
Greg, I
Manoj,
will not
quickly,
Yeah, I will
quickly.
not take much time.
Yep.
Just quickly, I want to add something what I heard from Prachi and Ale quickly. That
Yep.
from my little experience, like what Prachi said, that sometimes we are so ogled with the sport on our neck, or as Halle said, we are sometimes very stressed out. So I will take it that in these situations we need outside help more. So I like to use my team to work for me and then to cross-check rather than doing myself. But when I'm not relaxed, I make mistakes myself. I take it that way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, I agree with you 100%, and it's using those, using the skills of people around you. And yeah, I've just got a message in. Okay, no, Jennifer was joining us, but unfortunately she's had to leave early as well. So Jennifer's one of our regulars. Okay, guys, so quickly, I think what I'd like to do, remember that I share all my slides with all of you, and you're welcome to use them with your team whenever you like. But I just quickly wanted to refer to the 12% of people that felt they were definitely engaged in your business. And this is a very simple slide, but to me, it's so important. It's probably the most important that I wanted to share with you. And that is, investing time and training in people who have natural talents, a natural way of thinking, feeling, or behaving. Put the right investment into the right person who is going to develop their strengths and their consistency in building up themselves and your business. I just thought this was so simple and something that you can print out and put above your desk or actually share with your team. And your job as a leader is to help identify that talent, that natural flow of a person in your team. How often I remember having individuals that were prepared to work well over time on particular projects because they actually just love doing it. They got a problem in front of them, and to them it wasn't a problem, it was a puzzle, and they just wanted to work this thing out and finish the job, kind of thing. And I was always really touched by folks that had that drive, but it wasn't actually a drive. It was just a natural behavior of them to exceed your expectations on what they could deliver and the time they spent doing, what they were doing so well. So yeah, I want you to share that particular slide if you get the opportunity to do so. Okay, I'm going to then just touch on this one here again too. And this is really just an add-on to what we've just been discussing, is once you understand the strengths of the people in your team, is to assign them to tasks and projects that match their skills. I mean, it's really just as simple as that, and it's making them feel valued for the contribution that they make in that particular area. You're going to boost their productivity. You're going to reduce their stress a great deal. And when you evaluate them, it's going to be so easy because you know that the person has taken to a particular role and is very comfortable in that particular role. And you can just naturally enhance their experience in that particular role. So aligning strengths with the roles, I think, is a natural succession to what we were talking about earlier. I think one of the key things too that I always had a deliberate attempt to change in an organization, in other words, change the organization for the better, was that once people had a job description and they'd been there for a certain while, and you were well satisfied with what they were producing and the outcomes that they enabled the organization to achieve, was to actually get them to rewrite their own job description. And if your organization is not sort of cast in stone, is to really redesign their job descriptions. And you can do that, I would argue, maybe, every 6 months or perhaps at least once a year, to say, look, okay, this is how your role evolved during the year, and this is what you were working on. Let's update your job description in this respect now. So, Hallie, 1 minute. I saw you put your
Just quickly. Yeah, I was just going to say, taking from Caterpillar globally around Caterpillar, not just Caterpillar Financial, performance feedback was a definite thing they strived on. We did reviews. We had goals set every year. We aligned to our managers. We'd also, so that told us what our goals were for the year. And then we had 6 months review, and then we had an ending review. So performance feedback was always great. But then my managers at Caterpillar, their doors were always open. So just kind of have that feedback. Caterpillar runs a well team. Very diverse, to be honest. They really practice inclusion and diversity. So if you want to have a good corporation to look at, do recommend Caterpillar.
Fantastic. Thanks, Hallie. I'm going to ask Ozzy, tell us, give us a little bit of a background on your leadership and where you may have mismatched strengths to tasks, and how you may have corrected that, because it's also tough when after a while you realize that you may have made a mistake, and certainly I've made 1 or 2 appointment mistakes, and you've had to juggle things around a bit to keep someone because you knew they were good, but they weren't particularly good in this particular role. So matching strengths to tasks. Ozzy?
So there was a time when I had inherited a couple of teams. I had a business analysis team and a process team. And on the business analysis team, we had one person who was seen as a superstar. I mean, a true superstar. This person was so much better than all the other BAs.
Yeah.
And so this person was given a lot of leeway in terms of how to do things, because the organization really valued end results much more than process. And so the challenge that I had here was that we had an individual who's producing, getting favorable projects, let's say, whereas other individuals who were still very capable, but they were not given the I don't want to say prestige or the opportunities to do things that are more in their toolbox. Yeah. And so the end result was that person left. Yeah. I had conversations with this person because I had inherited a team. I had basically stated that we need to do things different for the sake of the team, and this person understood that also. Yeah. So one of the things that we did going forward was we actually took a look at career progression and opportunities for people. So we had BAs, and where could they go? Yeah. They could only go to a senior level. And so what we did was we actually mirrored their job description, their responsibilities, and then potential areas where they can move into. So for example, project manager, what's the project manager roles and responsibilities, and then see what the gaps are. And if that person's interested in doing that, actually working with that person to help them recognize what they need to do, as well as letting the project management leadership know this person's interested. So there's a bit of gap filling that we could do, but there are times where you just can't do anything because you've put somebody in a position where they're successful, but when you change the circumstances, you know, you got to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. And, you know, I think organizations are sort of live entities, you know, and you're dealing with people and circumstances and egos and characters. You know, you've got to be such a good judge of people. And I find that, you know, that whole leadership journey is so satisfying and interesting in that it's like the Holy Grail that you're looking for when you're looking for your dream team, you know. And I must say, in my last role in New Zealand, I definitely had a dream team, and that was very, very a good way to sort of end a 5-year contract in New Zealand. I was very happy there, and a lot of what I'm sharing now sort of applied to my most you know, recent role, as it were. Prachi, I'm going to ask you to come in on the next slide. Thank you, Ozzy, for your contribution. In many of the instances, what I do on these talks, and I'm very conscious of time, we've probably got about 7 or 8 minutes to go. I invite people just to have a look at the slide and see what's there and talk to it, you know, as best they can. So, Prachi, I'm going to put you on the deep end and ask you, where are you most comfortable in building trust and collaboration with your team? What's your best trick that you can teach us today around building trust and collaboration with your team? And use the slide as a prompt, really.
Thank you. Thank you. See, building trust, I think it's not a one-day agenda. It is definitely a process which happens. It's a relationship that happens over time.
That's right.
And it takes everything, right? From active listening to being empathetic, to giving them the space when it is required, believing in them, and giving them a little bit more than what they must have asked for.
Right.
I'm not talking compensation, I'm talking work. So giving them more work also from what is asked for, but it is only a way of showing that you believe in them more. So,
That's
but
right.
then, yes, I think it is a mix of all these things. What in today's time, I think one very big thing which is change that has happened after the COVID world that we post-COVID era that now we are in, I think flexibility, being a little more conscious towards people's personal priorities has taken much more importance than what it was earlier. I think we were a little more not really insensitive, but yeah, maybe just inflexible about it.
Yeah, a bit more hard-nosed, I suppose. Yeah.
So I think that has definitely played a big role in bringing in trust in people, that yes, you give them the flexibility, you understand their personal space, you understand that you can give them a little bit more, you will be there to hear them when it is required. And I think of course everybody likes to feel heard of. So as long as they have a voice on the table, you have a person who's going to treat the organization and the role as theirs. So that's the beauty of trust, if that you win it from someone.
Thank you so much. That was, extremely informative and relevant. I had a conversation just a day or two ago, dealing or creating an environment for younger employees to feel heard. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of younger employees or graduates may have done a lot of their university during COVID and now coming to the workplace, and they're just not used to that work environment that we find ourselves in nowadays. So and having older leaders, use myself as an example, and how we adapt to their circumstances as well, and understand and listen and meet them with the circumstances that I guess they may find themselves in. The example we had was, graduates in Dublin, for example, are foreign students who've got to get on the train at, early hours of the morning for an hour and a bit sometimes, get to work all day, hour and a half, home again. And they just couldn't keep up the pace. They were just exhausted the whole time, and they just not used to this, and how do you manage that situation, and it was an interesting conversation. Look, guys, I've been absolutely thrilled by your participation today. I'm going to show one more slide just so that you know that it was there. And as I say, I'll share these slides with everyone. It's got all the notes with them too. And it's really around sustaining high performance. Remember that the topic was building a dream team. And we'll use the Indian cricket team in the T20, going through the whole T20, winning, I think, was it 9 or 10 matches in a row. And that was about, without losing one match, that was about sustaining high performance, and it was a historic win for the national team to do that. Those folks who are not familiar with cricket, and it was it was something that knitted the whole nation together again, and to have such a magnificent. Unfortunately, a South African team was the one that lost in the final. So that was a bitter.
You're quite a sport, Rick. You're appreciating the Indian team, while yes, they were we were opponents to the South African team.
Yeah,
you're being quite a sport.
Yeah, it was nail biting, to say the least. But no, it's all good, and it's about all the things that I've basically listed on this particular slide. I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm conscious of your time, as I say. And
can I just add one thing here about cricket?
I know to come in.
I just, for about 2 seconds, I want to add something here, that with cricket and our today's session, the last 4 overs, it was the idea about the teamwork, Captain delegated the team so beautifully, and it changed the entire match.
That's right.
This is the relevance of using the right person at the right time at the right position.
Exactly. Ozzy, since you're a newcomer, Prachi's had quite a big contribution today, and so have you, but I'm going to give you the last word today. Wow. I want to, before you have your last word, I want to thank all of you guys for coming along today again to our little podcast. I'm very grateful. It's really lovely to have your contributions, to have this discussion. We do put this up onto YouTube. We're going to get a bit more fancy now by editing the video a little bit and putting it onto YouTube. And I always like to thank my erstwhile assistant, Frances, who's in the background, and thank her so much for inviting you guys and sending out the emails and so on. And yeah, a great job she does for me. I can really thank her wholeheartedly for the work that she does. Ozzy, last word, over to you.
So I'll keep it simple then. For me, leadership is lead by example. So
Fantastic.
lead by example, and you know, people will emulate what you do. So that shows your investment.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Ozzy, for your participation. And for the rest of you guys, have a lovely week. You've all got my contact details should you wish to have a conversation with me. And one or two of you have already done that in the last week. So I thank those folks for contacting me and having a chat with me. I would like to get you on board and put you on my 90-day program. And that would be wonderful to work with any individual who's part of this group. So once again, thank you so much, guys. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Bye, guys. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.
you.
Cheers, guys.
Bye. I just gotta leave.